I had a guy on the video, he was an expert in this, and he talked about what really brought to burnout, because we can handle pressure over a period of time and then we can go down again. So spending a week or two working intensely aggressively towards a deadline, it's fine. But what he said, I remember, is that what leads to burnout is if you keep that pressure on. That was not healthy for most people. Hey everyone, this is Heini and here, and welcome to Founders Weekly, where we cover the news for startup founders and tell stories we can learn from. Today, we're going to talk about founder drama. We have multiple recent stories. As a part of that, we talk about the founder hustle culture, something that looks like it's coming back. Then we'll bring on a guest, and we're talking about platform risk, something a lot of startups get hit by, and our guest knows it firsthand. My co-host today is Courtney Quatrini. Courtney has worked 20 years in PR and communication, 10 years of those at Vivino and with me. She is an expert in communications and recently made a total career change and is now an associate psychotherapist, becoming an expert in both communication and how founders think. Welcome, Courtney.
Thank you, Heine. Nice to be here again.
Great to see you. And I am actually recording from LA today. I was at my son's graduation here Sunday. Incredibly nice to be in LA.
Yeah, he's a rocket engineer now.
Yes, aerospace engineer. Congratulations, Bastians. Fantastic. We're at the Angel Stadium for the graduation. A huge event at the Angel Stadium. Pretty cool, I must say.
Awesome. Congratulations, Bastian.
I'm sure he says thank you. He said, I say thank you on behalf of him. Anyway, let's go to the first story. And we're starting with OpenAI. We all remember the drama back in November when the board suddenly fired CEO and co-founder Sam Altman and then reinstated him shortly after. In the last couple of weeks, we've had Ilya Slutskever, a co-founder and chief scientist, resign. This was soon followed by the resignation of Jan Leike, another prominent researcher who worked on AI safety guardrails. These departures have fueled speculation about potential disagreements over the direction of OpenAI's AI development. So first, why does this keep happening for OpenAI?
Well, I don't know. I don't know why that keeps happening. I think that what I get curious about is the disagreements about direction. And so I wonder if there's two schools of thought here. One is prioritize safety, prioritize spending money on safety. And I wonder if the alternative to that is build fast, release quickly. Something I want to put back on you and ask you about, but I'll pause first.
Yes, that's the thing. And we're after Google all the time because they're not pushing hard enough on this. And it feels like there is a move slowly, don't break anything philosophy for part of the team. And then there's another one that push. Let's get out there because we have to move faster than say Google. But what is that going to do to OpenAI? Can they live with having like two different sort of beliefs, or what's going to happen to them?
I don't think so. I think the stakes are too high. I think that we started out in this position where it was AI is going to end humanity and that safety needs to be prioritized. And then I wonder if as the competition heated up, did that go out the window? And so we don't know. We're not there. We haven't spoken to them directly. But I think about startup culture, and I think about you and your belief, like build fast, release quickly, and test and learn. I wonder if when it comes to AI, is that the same model? Are the stakes too high? So what do you think?
Yeah, it's a really, really difficult question. Obviously, if you build airplanes, that might not be a good idea. But where does it go? I mean, where is the limit? Because look, we've been building a wine app. If we fail and get vintage wrong once in a while, I mean, that is fine. But if you build things that you really believe could break society, I mean, it became so apparent with Facebook and Meta because their thing was build fast and break things, and then you end up breaking democracy. I mean, that is a problem, right? So where is AI on this?
That's the only thing that I can think about. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all approach. It's pretty divisive. I think you and I even had a conversation about you. It tends to be one of these polarized issues that either you're all in or you're like, nope, we're not here yet. And so I can only imagine the leadership challenges and lack of alignment that is connected to these things.
Yeah. I mean, we probably just see what's happening on the surface, right? But before we get to like why this is so public, like I think we both agree that, alignment among founders and leadership, that is just key, right?
Yeah, I think so. And we last time I was here talking to you, we talked about another leader who left and then was brought back. And so I also get really curious about that. When a founder leaves and then comes back, or when it's clear that there's some disagreement in a founder, what does that do to culture? And I know we're going to be talking about startup culture later.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's a culture that follows the leaders. So when they brought Sam back, they said, okay, we're going to go in this direction, right? So the other thing on this story is this basically all happened in public, like at the same exact second as he was fired back then. On top of all this drama, a lot of this is happening in public, meaning as soon as in the early days when they let Sam go, everyone knew right away. And why does that happen? And that's got to be problematic too, right?
Yeah, well, I think on one hand, all eyes are on this company, and that was in large part a part of their doing, a part of Microsoft's doing. And so everyone's paying attention. So that's why it happens. If it's good or bad, I'm not sure. I don't think that there's an answer there. I think they have to be meticulously careful. I think there's a period of time for most companies when they can come out and they can make a lot of big, bold claims. And then very quickly, the expectation is, are you delivering on those claims? Some people said, after the announcement this week, that it was a little bit lackluster. And I know we're going to get to the drama around Scarlett Johansson and her, but yeah, so it's multifaceted.
Yeah, totally. Okay, let's move away from OpenAI, because there's another thing that has also got a little bit of attention lately, and that's this hustle culture and so on. So we're going to dig a little bit into that, because that can create a lot of drama too. So 2 weeks ago, Jeffrey Wang, the founder of an AI startup in San Francisco, tweeted the following: I am buying Japanese capsule beds as nap pods for our new San Francisco office, if you want to bulk order with me. So this led to a TechCrunch article and a lot of talk about this hustle culture being back. So let's start up by defining that. Courtney, how do you see the startup hustle culture? What is that?
It's what you brought me into 10 years ago.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, when I think about hustle culture, it's the eat, sleep, and drink work idea. And so there's been a lot of schools of opinion on both sides of this. Should you eat, sleep, and drink where you work? Should you not have a break around the product you're building? I think there's a belief among some startup folks that you really have to be like obsessed and all in it. I have a different thought. I'm a therapist and I prioritize mental well-being.
You're looking for balance on all levels.
Yeah, correct. In many ways. So I don't know. How do you define startup hustle culture?
No, yeah, it is that, right? Work, eat, sleep. I mean, that's it. You live together, and that's the next story that's coming here now is also about that. They are looking for houses specifically in one area in San Francisco where people build these early stage AI companies, and that's all they do. I mean, I think if you're a young person, that could be fine if that's what you want to do. I'm just not sure about how long it's going to last, but for a period, I think it's probably fine.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say. So we're coming out of the post-pandemic era where people started to talk about, I am burned out. And then there was this shift in the other direction. I tend to think our nervous systems needed to be regulated from the collective trauma about the pandemic, but there was also a pushback to, I don't want to work all the time. And I think what the article said, the TechCrunch article said that actually this culture is coming back into favor in some ways. So I think we're trying to find that balance. I don't know, even for young people, there's more to life, obviously. And maybe if it's a choice, that's one thing, but I don't know. I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Maybe if it's a choice and you're not pressured into it, then it might be fine, right? Okay, let's. So the other story that we noticed on this was the San Francisco Standard that says this Hay Valley in San Francisco has got a new nickname, Cerebral Valley, referring to all the nerds in their hacker houses. Apparently, this culture is back with a new wave of AI. When you were there, did you see these hacker houses blow up?
I heard about them. It's not like they're sorority or fraternity houses that have letters on them that you can easily identify. But it started to
Maybe you
become
can smell them.
exactly. It's and who knows if this is perception versus reality. The news writes something and then it's chicken and the egg.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not sure. One thing that I think is interesting when you think about the concept of a hacker house, you're meant to, again, eat, breathe, sleep, live there. And something I think about, going back to the nap pods for 1 second, is that it's meant to increase productivity and keep people comfortable. It totally blows my mind that we're saying we need to put people in places where they can sleep so that they can keep working. So hacker houses where a team of people can work together, live, sleep, so that they can build quickly. Is that pressure sustainable? I'm not sure. I
No.
don't think so.
No, look, I'm sure some people thrive in it and they can do it for a long time, but it should be something they want. They shouldn't be sort of pressured into it. I think that's incredibly important. The other thing is, even if you do it and want to do it for a period, I mean, can you do it for 10 years? Should you be doing it in your 50s? I mean, I think probably not, right?
Right. It's a can versus should. And so I'm sitting with people on a daily basis now in a setting where they're talking about anxiety, where they're talking about depression, where they're talking about burnout. And so it's hard for me, being on this other side of it, not to advise how are we cultivating and practicing presence. There's a lot of buzz around mindfulness, but
Yeah.
I don't know that on a day-to-day basis many people actually know how to really, really regulate themselves. And so it's this capitalistic culture that we're feeding into and that a lot of us need to. But I think we have to show up with a lot of curiosity for who we are as individuals. Does this serve me, my brain, my body best in a holistic way? And Heine, can you imagine living with me like in the early days, and not
Yeah,
only
I
living
mean,
with me, but living with all of our team members? Like, no, thank you. I love to
I would
y'all,
definitely
but
need a
no.
break at some point, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I think when we talk about burnout and so on, I think I had a guy on the video. He was an expert in this, and he talked about what really brought to burnout. What I think he called it flatline, because we can handle pressure over a period of time, and then we can go down again. So spending a week or two working intensely aggressively towards a deadline, it's fine. But then you go on a break, and then. But what he said, I remember, is that what leads to burnout is if you keep that pressure
Yep.
on. That was not healthy for most people.
Yeah, you need to release it. Like, it's like putting a pressure valve in there, and you've got to release it at some
Yeah.
point. And as Americans in particular are notoriously awful at taking vacation time. So I don't know when that's happening in a lot of instances.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not saying it needs to be vacation. I mean, of course you should have a vacation too, but also that when you have a period with really, really high pressure, then you need to go into a period with lower pressure and then sort of
Yeah.
bounce back and forward. I think
Yep.
when it's
Yeah.
constant, it's really, really not good for you.
Well, just one thing on that. So I think it's also, when we think about AI, so much of the conversation around AI has been about productivity and helping people be more productive. I get curious around things like nap pods, things like productivity. There's the human spirit is meant to be in some ways uncomfortable. It's what builds our resiliency. And so I actually
Yeah.
think that there's a conversation around that balance of like, how much do we push ourselves, like you're talking about, and then how much do we need to rest and recover. So the goal isn't like total comfort at all times, but there's this interesting
Yeah.
conversation out there around taking some pressures off, and addressing comfort levels, which is just we could talk about that in another episode, but it's something that comes into play with all of our stories today, I believe.
Yeah, and I believe in pressuring myself and the people. I like taking it like outside the comfort zone and all those things, and I think it's incredibly important. That's when you really learn. If you stay comfortable all the time, I mean, you'll never learn how far you can take it and so on. But everything is a balance too. You can take that to a certain level, maybe not too far.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Any last comments on the drama and hustle culture of San Francisco?
I would just say, there's a lot of news about San Francisco. Walking the streets of San Francisco, things are definitely not back where they used to be. You go to New York City right
No.
now, it's thriving. And so I'll be curious to see where this lands, where Silicon Valley lands, where, I'd love to have some of that startup energy back, but I'm not feeling and seeing it in the way that sometimes the news projects. So we'll see.
Yeah, especially not downtown. I mean, there is where it is, but downtown San Francisco is really not what it was 5-6 years ago. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was one thing that we noticed in the news is this Scarlett Johansson has come out and claimed that they stole her, shall we say, flirty voice. Courtney, what is that all about?
Yeah, so a number of things happened from how I understand this. So Sam Altman had reached out to Scarlett Johansson asking her if she would be the voice. She considered it for personal reasons. She said no. And right before the new release, he reached out to her again, asking her to reconsider. He then sent out a tweet or whatever it's called now, saying that just said
X-tweet.
her. Yeah, X tweet, just saying her. And so, she came out and she said, unfortunately, that she had to hire legal representation because she was adamantly opposed to this. And she was clear in her communication with Sam Altman. And then when you listen to the voice, it sounds very much
there.
not a carbon copy, but very much like Scarlett Johansson in her. And so, yeah, it's but what the company did is they paused using that voice to, they said out of respect for her. And I guess, well, it's under investigation. So bold move. It makes me wonder, was there intentionality? Did they know it would cause this buzz?
Yeah. I didn't realize till now. I know the Her tweet was about the movie Her, and I assume Scarlett played her in Her, right?
Yes.
I also felt that the tweet was a reference to just having like an AI girlfriend, not necessarily her and the movie Her, but not necessarily Scarlett, the actress behind it.
Yeah, it could be, but then that begs another question. Why is OpenAI creating a seductive girlfriend type persona? And, this is, as you know, I am very concerned about AI and how it's communicating with young people. And so, I think there's so many components to this story that, are probably a little bit too in the weeds for us to get into today, but it's wild.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very curious story. We're going to follow up on that later. We are back. Today's guest is Mathias Hermansen. He's the CEO and co-founder of GamerPay. Welcome, Mathias.
Thank you, Heini. Happy to be here.
Fantastic. First, let's define platform risk. Platform risk for a startup refers to potential vulnerabilities and uncertainties arising from reliance on external platforms controlled by other companies. Something that you really need and is out of the startup's control. And this can affect, operations, stability, growth due to changes in policies, technical issues, and competitive actions. So a recent example of that was Apollo, a third-party app for Reddit. They ended up shutting down because Reddit changed their pricing policy that would cost them $20 million annually and an unsustainable expense for a small developer. So in this case, Reddit changed the policy and then it killed the startup. So Mathias, what do you guys do?
Yeah, thanks. So we are a marketplace. We are a marketplace for gaming skins. And for those of you unfamiliar with that, it's basically digital outfits that you wear in games, in particular in Counter-Strike. It's extremely popular. And we are the middleman and marketplace for connecting buyers and sellers worldwide for trading of Counter-Strike skins.
So basically like an apparel, maybe like H&M for gamers.
Like H&M, like an eBay, even better, or the OpenSea, but just for Counter-Strike skins.
Okay, and the reason why you started this was because there was a lot of third-party trading, but there was a lack of trust, as far as I remember, right?
Yeah, exactly. So about half of every Counter-Strike player you'll talk to, they'll report to you and tell you they've been scammed. And what happens and why do they get scammed? Well, someone on the other end of the world will tell you they're going to send you the money or they're going to send you the item in just a second. You just need to do one little action extra, and then you don't get anything in the other in return.
Okay. Yeah, that sucks, obviously. So We're talking about platform risk, and there's a reason why I called you on. Let's talk about your connection with one or two platforms, and then we'll talk about what actually happened earlier this year.
Yeah.
How are you connected to whom?
So the big connection we have is with the game, obviously. So the game has created and owns the skins, you could say. And they basically, in the end, control what we are allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do. So we have a massive platform risk. We have other platform risks that are much smaller, Facebook, Google, and so on. No one can really, get around those. But the big one for us is Steam and Valve.
Okay, and Steam and Valve, that's the two big platforms which the games run on, right?
Yeah, so it's Steam is owned by Valve, so it runs. It's like a massive gaming ecosystem, you could say, and they're basically our entry point and exit point for any kind of gamer that trades on our end as well.
And I know we've talked about this earlier. Counter-Strike as a game, though, it just isn't a regular game because most games come and go, and Counter-Strike has been around for, what are we talking, 20 years?
Yeah, exactly. So it's, it keeps beating records. It's been around for 20 years. Just, a couple of months ago, it had another all-time high. So it's, let's say, an ecosystem. It's a community. It's essentially like a two-sided or multi-sided marketplace, if you will. And it just has this network effect that keeps going. It's quite amazing.
Yeah. So the real risk, we could say, is Steam. Then I guess you know a little bit too much about it. So what happened a few weeks ago on that?
Yeah, it's pretty imprinted in my mind. 3rd of April, I wake up in the morning and I realize that during the night, U.S. time, obviously, we've been cut out of Steam. So they cut the API access we had, and the API access is essentially how we validate the trades. So if you trade on eBay, you'd send off an item, you have some shipping connection, you don't know where your item is for quite a while. We always know because we can look at the seller and the buyer, and we can automate and say, hey, Heini has delivered the item now to Mathias. Let's release the money. So it's super efficient, very fast. That automation broke, and in a split second, we didn't know where's the money, where's the items, how are things going.
And that's fundamental for you because that's where your trust is, that you can actually track these things and so on.
Exactly. So for us, that's the heart and nerve of everything we do. It's, the number one for us is making sure that money and items move with each other so that we can always guarantee that you either get the item you bought or you get the money back. So it's essential. It's the core nerve of what we're doing.
So that broke. Why did that broke? What happened?
It's a good question. I think I'm still trying to get to the full bottom of it, but you could say technically they just, decommissioned the API. So the API stopped working, you call it, it doesn't return anything. If you go one level further, a week before, there had been an incident in the community where some gambling companies, like let's say bad actors, had played around, had showed muscle, had showed that you can gamble with different Counter-Strike items. I think, and that's just my belief, I think Valve got fed up with that. And they turned off the APIs, and we were collateral in that in that turnoff. They didn't want this bad actor behavior, and unfortunately, we were collateral in that bigger play.
And how long was this? How long did this happen? How long was this going on? And with you knowing nothing.
So third, full shutdown. We went to a plan B, redirecting to other kind of APIs. Unfortunately, the bad actors went to the same APIs, and then they shut those down on the night of the 4th. And so it continued actually for 4 or 5 days, where it was kind of like a cat and a mouse game of seeing what you could validate. And in the end, we just decided, hey, let's not use these APIs. Let's go to a more manual solution where we are, let's say, more disconnected, which is what we're running on now. So about a week or so, we were in the dark, you could say.
And Mathias, how long have you spent on building this startup? And what was that like seeing like this could all be gone right now?
That's a sensitive question. Yeah, so we're hitting our 3-year anniversary this month. So seeing that was kind of insane. Obviously, I think entrepreneurs have a mindset that you can fix anything and you can just we'll get back on top right away. So it's like it's a grenade that pops, right? But then you're like back into the mode of, okay, so how do we deal with this? Okay, so let's do 1, let's do 2, let's do 3. And I think, you have that naive mindset that you can just fix it like that.
And I'm sure this is where Courtney has a question. Courtney, what do you say?
Yeah. So hi, Mathias. I'm thinking about this through the lens of risk, both communication and planning. a lot of startups do not have resources, bandwidth, budget, people to do risk planning. For Vivino, we did some risk planning. We tried to think about scenarios that could happen, but it takes a lot of time and energy and effort. So, knowing all of that, were you prepared? Had you thought about this risk scenario?
So we had talked about it. That's how far we were. We had talked about that this could happen, and we had talked about what we would do if it happened, and that we already had this, let's say, mental backup plan of what we would do. But I had honestly not believed we would come to the point where we would actually have to execute that plan, not to the degree we ended up doing, because it just seemed pretty far-fetched that we were not able to, connect to anything on the other end.
No.
So that's sort of the technical side of it. You could say we're super close to our community. So, day one, we're communicating to everyone on Twitter saying, hey, this is what's happening. Your money is safe. Don't worry, we're fixing this. And you get a lot of love back, which gives you some energy to just,
cool.
go back and fight a little bit.
And how big is your community again?
So we have around 400,000 gamers on our platform, and I guess 50 or 60,000 of them directly connected on Twitter as well. So you get a lot of, let's say, feedback quite quickly on that. And honestly speaking, everyone is very supportive. And yeah, on the numbers, we didn't really see people start to doubt what we're doing. So that was that was a very strong testament, I feel.
That's amazing. Yeah.
That's cool. And before we get to how business is now, let's talk a little bit about how you think platform risk sort of affects you in the daily life, because I know fundraising can be a problem. What else is there? Is it hard for you guys to raise money? And what else? What are the problems going to give you?
Yeah, so on the one side, you gain access to this massive user group. You gain access to some trust.
Exactly.
You gain access to someone that built other things for you, basically. So it's a massive upside. But on the flip side, you always have this thing that can wake you up at night and things don't work. It's not the first time things haven't worked. We've experienced it a few times by now. And honestly, you're always the little brother, waiting for the big brother to do something when you're that end of the stick. And I think we have so much more platform risk. Just when you start thinking about it, right? We have AWS, we have all our servers running maybe one place. We have a fantastic marketing channel in maybe Google or Facebook, but if they do something, then what do you do? So I think it's probably, I guess that's the counter thing I tell myself, is that we actually accept a lot of platform risk all over the place, honestly, but some of it is just more pronounced, like this one for us.
Yeah, I've invested in a dating app, and a big channel for them was TikTok and paid TikTok. And they just wake up one morning and TikTok has now banned all dating apps on TikTok, right? So that's a major platform risk that they hadn't thought about. So it is two things. Like you say, you get some, shall we say, gifts from the platforms, but there's just a constant risk. Just quickly on you have raised money. How much money have you raised so far, Mathias?
So we are in total around $3 million.
Okay. And what do you think? Are you going to try and eliminate some of that platform risk in the future to be able to raise more money and build the company?
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, from the beginning, we've had our eye on the platform risk in the beginning, but you could say we've seen it as a wedge into the market. So the plan has always been to build beyond what we're doing now. I think the other thing to point to is whether part of that analysis has been, are we winning together with those that we have platform risk with, right? So we felt we'd made the community stronger. So it's like, why would they, jeopardize us? And I still feel we have something good together, although it's a little different now. But I think we are looking at multiple different games, different titles, and that's not just platform risk, but just let's say single title risk, if you want. If you're a sneaker marketplace, what happens if the sneaker market, goes down? If you are a dating app, what happens if one country has some changes or whatever, right? So I think for us, it's very evident what the platform risk is, and that's something we want to, get out of eventually.
Yeah. How's business now, and have you actually decreased the platform risk after this event?
Yeah. So first off, the platform risk is massively decreased. We are not as integrated as we were before. Like we have a very, let's say, scalable solution now that actually you could say, whether we call the gaming platform right now, or we call let's say a shipping API, or we call something else, like some kind of party to verify trades, our platform is very agnostic right now. So that's the good part of it. And right now, you could say, I think business, you obviously take a hit, right? Like that's just unavoidable when you're closed for 8 days. But the cool thing is to see, our core community is back. They're rooting for us. You could say on the revenue side, things have picked up again. So it sort of it does give you a bit of a, let's say, a slap in the face, but then then you're back at it, and the core product hasn't really changed. So in that sense, it's a good place. But I think most importantly, it's for us internally, it's a wake up call on a few things that we had maybe thought we would take later. We're now working on those. So that's the biggest internal change, I'd say.
And you're still here.
Yeah. We're still here and we're not going anywhere. No, I think, as you know, right, you have the fighting spirit is still there. And I think the core parts are still good, but it's sort of, you need to navigate again on a different map a little bit. And that's what we're doing now.
Courtney, any final comments on platform risk here before we move on?
Well, I am curious about your community. So from my understanding, a big part of the product market fit here was about the age of your community, and that there was a lot of young people who were being scammed. And so I work with teenagers every day and constantly have red flags around what they're doing in the gaming space. And so I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the demographics and how you think about, with this risk that just happened, even the communication, is that to the parent? Like, can you speak more to that component of your business?
Yeah, so we came into this market as one of the first players that could actually facilitate transactions for 13 to 18-year-olds. And that sounds kind of crazy when you say it out loud, right? Why would they be trading with each other? Obviously, they need to have a parent on the side, so everything is sort of parentally approved. But when you started to dig into it, you realize that a bunch of these teenagers have actually quite valuable assets that they have bought, acquired, won in different ways. And they're like, hey, I can go down on a flea market and buy and sell stuff. My life is, very digital. Why can't I do that online? So that's a lot of the ethos we came in with. And I think actually to the transparency we had early on, that's the part to take away. We've been extremely transparent. We try to really communicate in a non-gamer language, which hopefully strikes the balance. Maybe I think some of the young gamers will think it's a bit boring because it doesn't, have all of the right emojis, but it sort of at least tells to the point what's going on, right? There's nothing hidden here. And, you can write me, you can write anyone. We have our faces on the platform. You can find us, you can contact us any time of day, and we'll help out if there's any problems. So that's still part of everything we do. So I think that's a massive piece. I think the other part of this is we realize that we need to be out there, because what it has done on the backside is some slightly more shady solutions have popped up, which is very hard for, let's say, the untrained or younger internet inhabitant to realize. So I think us and a few others in the market have an extremely important role to play now, to sort of continue to say, don't hand over your login details, right? Which is something we see now. Just don't do that. Even though it gets really convenient, but it also is, that's extremely risky, right? Much higher than a platform risk. So we can't take all of, there's a lot of things in the world we can't cure, and this one is one we can't win ourselves either, but we can play a small part in it for sure.
Well, exactly. And I think a lot about the parent connection or even just education. And so I'm in a high school today, and I love the idea of actually teaching. And I know there's an increase in this around cybercrime, or, like what to be on the lookout for. And so I think it's language that's accessible for a parent, someone like me who cannot speak the gamer talk, and the young person themselves. So I think it's amazing that you're thinking about it that way and a real need there. So awesome. Thanks for explaining that.
Okay, we are back, and I have one question from the community sort of before we go to talk a little bit about the podcast. And it's about what we talked about earlier, which is founder drama and so on. And it's really like a high level question. How do you avoid founder drama and founders fighting? And Mathias, I think you have some experience in this too. But how do you do it at the early stage to make sure, look, let's try and avoid that there's too much fighting going on 3 years down the line or even right away?
Yeah. I don't know what you're hinting to, Heini, but I'll take it up anyway. Now, so I'd say one of the things we have, and I mean installed now, is we have a monthly session. All of the founders together. We're 5. We were 5 in the beginning. We're actually 4 now. So that's one of the changes.
There's a story there too.
Exactly, but it's a friendly one, so he's still working with us now and then. But what we have is basically round the table. So every, let's say, management meeting or every, let's say, founder meeting starts with a round the table. Where are you now? What's working for you? What's not working? And that's not talking about business metrics. That's talking about you as a person. What's happening in your life? How about the rest of us? Like, are we doing something to piss you off? Are we doing something that excites you? That doesn't take everything away. Obviously, one of our team members left, but it at least puts the conversation forward, right? And I think that's a major nice thing for us, even though not all of the conversations are that nice necessarily, I should say.
Which is good because you get it out there, right?
Yeah, exactly. You get it out there. You have a format, which is sort of like once you've done it 3 or 4 times, then it sort of starts to become a thing.
Yeah. What do you say, Courtney?
I'm also a couples therapist. And so my idea is that we just infiltrate founders. This is why I got into couples therapy, with therapists or mediators who can facilitate those really hard discussions and be an unbiased, regulated presence. So that's my idea. That's my approach. But yeah, sounds good, Mathias. I like structure. A lot of times there's no structure and then it all goes to hell.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think my core belief is, and this is from early, just manage expectations. Always manage, meaning what are you doing? What are we doing? What do we expect from you? And so on. And we talked about hustle culture before, Mathias. And if somebody wants to live in a house with 7 other people and work 24/7, and some others don't want that, just make sure you have managed those expectations, because he wants to be married and have 3 kids and live in a different house. It is what it is, as long as we manage that. I think that's just key for all.
Yeah, no, I think that's a major point going into any of that. Totally agree.
Yeah, and we talked about OpenAI before, and I think one of the problems there is fundamentally that they're just not doing what they set out to do. I mean, the word is the title of the company is OpenAI, and they're very much become closed AI. So something has changed since they started. That's for sure. So I think that's creating some problems. Cool. I want to move a little bit on here and talk a little bit about the podcast. So I've been transparent with the numbers of the podcast, and we're now at episode 11, and numbers are still good. But I'm a little bit tired of talking about that. Courtney quickly gets tired of me talking about numbers, so I bet we're aligned there. But I want to take this final segment and do something else with it. So that's why I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. And I have 2 ideas, and I definitely want to hear from the listeners too, if you can put some comments in there to say what you think. But the 2 ideas I have, one of them is really quite simple. A co-host and guest bring a story, and we talk about that. That's okay. It's maybe a little bit boring. The other idea is to ask the co-host and the guest, what are you obsessed by? And a lot of the people that we have on most are pretty passionate. So ask them, what are you obsessed by right now? Meaning, is it a product? Is it a book? Is it a new idea? Is it a new feature? Anything. And just have you guys or whoever is on talk passionately about that and discuss it. So what do you guys think about that?
I'll let you go, Connie.
Okay. It's a yes and. So I think that more ways to facilitate intimate conversation. Who is the person behind the company? And how does that apply to startups and leadership? I love, Heine, your obsession with the technical components, but my desire is to push more into the people side, the human side. So I like that as one question. My recommendation would be you have a series of questions, like quick fire questions that you ask, and they have to reply from intuition in a like fast fire way. So not just the one. That's boring. One question, boring.
Okay, cool. That's good, Mathias.
Yeah, my 2 cents. Again, I love the obsession part, but mainly because it brings forward the passion, right? So I love myself to listen to people that are passionate and can talk passionately about something, as long as it doesn't get the same few passion points you get every time, then that probably tips off. But if it has variety, I'm all for it.
Yeah, and it should really be, what are you obsessed by right now? Because it's probably something new if I was going to ask you guys that question now, Courtney, for example, what are you obsessed by right now? And now I'm giving Mathias a little bit of time to think. I'm also going to talk a little bit, so you get a few seconds more to think, and Mathias can think about it. But what are you obsessed by right now, Courtney?
I'm boring. I'm obsessed with like therapy and personal development. I'm obsessed by Dr. Becky. She's a parenting expert, psychologist who is helping tons of parents navigate this crazy world we live in. So I'm obsessively listening to Dr. Becky's podcast, which is called Good Inside, reading her book. I don't know that the two of you will relate to that. Maybe you will, but that's what I'm obsessed with right now, Dr. Becky.
But Courtney, I mean, that was a great fucking answer, right? Nobody saw that coming, and I think that was cool. Matthias, what do you say? You've had many seconds here to think about it now.
Yeah. So actually, as you may have heard in the background, I'm in the airport. So I'm up today. I've spent the day geeking around in the physical trading card scene. Been with a fantastic guy called Peter, has a really nice shop. So I'm going all in on trading cards at the moment. I think it's amazing. I think there's so many similarities to gaming skins. For some, it will sound like it's fucking off the planet, but man, if you close your eyes and listen to some of the folks in these different communities, you would not know that they were not talking about the same thing. They are so passionate and it's so geeky. I just love it. Came from a gamer. They were gaming up before Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Like, it's so cool. I love it, and there's so much depth into it. So yeah.
I think you could create a mashup of all of the answers to show that our interests are so varied and vast, and that passion takes many forms. Like, look at the discrepancy between Mathias and myself. So yeah,
which is super exciting. Obviously, I mean, even if I might not be that interested in Becky or trading cards for that matter, just hearing you talk about it and your passion is interesting, right? So I think that's well worth it. So I really want to hear from the community here. What do you think? Now we tested this. What are you obsessed by right now a little bit? And was that interesting or not? Anyway, we have come to the end. Please make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, and please leave a review and rating. It really helps. For all of you on YouTube too, please make sure you check out Raw Startup. A lot of good videos on how to build a startup. This has been Founders Weekly. Now stop listening and go build something.